Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's Julie here from the Story a Day podcast, coming to you this month in what is, for me, whenever you're listening to it, I don't know, but for me, this is August of 2020. And the theme here at Story a Day this month is triumph. It's part of the writer code that I've been talking about this year. W is for write, R is for refine, I is for improve, T is for triumph, E is for engage, and R is for repeat. So we're working through each of these topics over the year and how they apply at different stages. This month, all of the podcasts, all of the stuff I'm posting at storyaday.org is all going to be about triumph. And why? Why am I going to talk about triumph? Well, I think it's really important for us to understand what success looks like. It's easy for somebody else, somebody who doesn't write, to understand what success looks like, because of course success looks like getting a publishing deal, having a best-selling author, going on a book tour, going on a TV show to talk about your book, being on all of the radio shows talking about your book. That's what success looks like from the perspective of a reader, from the perspective of somebody in general culture, right? But that, even for the most successful author on the planet, that happens once a year, once every 10 years, maybe never, because the more successful you get as a writer, the more you can say no to those opportunities. I mean, you don't often see Stephen King on talk shows anymore because he doesn't have to do that. So if that's not a real and objective measure of success to someone who considers themselves a successful writer, for someone who's making their living at it, for someone who is the best paid author on the planet, you don't see James Patterson on TV. You don't see very often. You don't see any of these people because they are writing. So what is success? And how do we chase that in a way that is more meaningful and more helpful and applicable at every single stage of the writing journey? How do we recognize it? How do we set our own goals for that? How do we implement it? How do we keep from falling off the wagon? These are the things I'm going to be talking about this month. And I really think, the more I do this, the more I realize that this is the stuff that matters. And we have to define success for ourselves. Not forever. There's different types. I'm going to talk about that a bit as well, about success doesn't look the same day to day, right? Because we're human and stuff happens. And I could be going along gangbusters. I could be writing every day. I could be reaching my word count. I could be writing brilliant stuff. And then something happens because we're human. And life happens, and we love people, and we are connected to our communities, and things throw us off. The circumstances are not always perfect. So success is going to look very different from day to day, from week to week, from year to year, and from season to season in our lives. And we need to be kind to ourselves. Sometimes success is writing 2,000 words a day. Sometimes success is turning on your computer and not crying. Sometimes success is writing a single sentence because you haven't written anything for 4 months. So there are many, many reasons why we might not be living and acting on somebody else's image of what a writer should do. we might be avoiding writing because we're genuinely busy. This year has been a weird year. For some of us, it's been easier to write more because we're at home and our workload has diminished. For some of us, it's been harder to write this year because we're at home and our workload has changed, increased, got more chaotic. Sometimes we're unable to do the work because we're afraid. We're afraid of being bad at it. We are afraid of the things we might uncover if we connect with our emotions. We're afraid of not being able to live up to the last success we had. Sometimes we're trying to do too much. We are trying to write 2,000 words a day when really we only have time to scribble down a few ideas every day, and we don't allow ourselves to recognize that for us in this moment, in this season of life, that's success. Sometimes, we're not being realistic. Even it doesn't matter if last year you could complete stories and this year you can't even find your pencil, because this year your life is different. So we need to practice compassion, and we need to look for successes that are appropriate to our stage and appropriate to our goals. So I'm not saying that you can always congratulate yourself just for having a sharpened pencil on hand, or you can always congratulate yourself for writing a Twitter-length story. Sometimes that's going to be you coasting and not living up to your abilities, but sometimes that's going to be a triumph. And I want you to think about that. What is realistic for you at the moment? What is unrealistic for you at the moment? If you do not have a routine in place where you are routinely coming to your desk and routinely looking for ideas, if you don't have that kind of routine in place, then don't expect yourself to write a novel yet. Maybe your first definition of success is getting that routine, or getting that routine back if you've fallen away from it. What's the next step that you need to take? And how can you define that? How can you define that for yourself in terms of making it feel successful? If you've been writing for 2 years every day and, just grabbing 3 story sparks out of the world every day doesn't feel like success for you, then give yourself a more ambitious goal. Take a class from someone that you're scared to take a class from because they're your idol. Awesome. Move on from the writing group that you've left behind. Scare yourself. But if you're not ready to be scared in your writing life because the rest of your life is so scary, then really work on finding ways to feel successful. And I'm not just saying this because I'm nice. I'm actually saying this because behavioral science teaches us that we do better when we feel successful. Very few people are actually motivated by fear and anxiety, and usually when they are, it's because there is an external force acting on them. If you're in boot camp for the Marines and you've got a drill sergeant who is riding you, then of course you're going to be motivated by that. But that's not how we're living, especially not as writers. We are our own drill sergeants, and we're not going to be that mean to each other. Or if we are, there's something wrong. So I want you to focus on finding the things that will make you feel what BJ Fogg calls shine. He's a behavioral scientist from Stanford. He's got a new book out called Tiny Habits. You've heard me talk about it before if you've been around here for any length of time. He was searching for that feeling you get. He was searching for an English word for that feeling you get when something goes well and you just feel good. And he couldn't find a word that truly encapsulated it. So he came up with the phrase shine. You just feel kind of shiny when things go well, right? So that's what I'm I'm encouraging you to look for, and I want you to think about it on a deeply personal level, because the more writers I talk to, the more I understand that everyone is in their own unique place, even though we're all pursuing the same thing. And the publishing industry and people in the publishing industry will tell you that you need to do these things, and these are the goals, and these are the milestones, and there's set stages that you have to go through. Most of what we do is alone in our rooms, me and a computer, you and a fountain pen, you and a pencil and a piece of paper. We're self-motivating. We're searching for shine, because when you feel that shine, it embeds in your brain a desire to do the thing again that makes you feel good. It's why people get addicted. We want to get addicted to the right things, right? We want to get addicted to that boost you get when you've written. And I want you to set your expectations and your definition of success, your definition of triumph for this week based on where you are today. Not where you were last year, not where you hope to be next year, but where you are today. Do you have a routine? Do you routinely get to your desk? No? Figure out a way you can routinely get to your desk. What's the minimum thing you would need to do on how many days for you to feel successful at this stage of your writing life? Do you have someone you are holding yourself accountable to? No? Find someone. It doesn't have to be somebody who's writing. Find somebody who wants to get fit or take more photographs or draw more, and tell them, I will write on these days and I will email you when I've done it, and you will draw on whichever days you choose, and you will email me when you've done it, and hold each other accountable. If you don't have that already, maybe think about setting that up. If you are trying to write 2,000 words a day and it's never happening, try writing 750 words 3 days a week. I'm plucking that out of the air because it's something that's worked for me. 750 words seems to be this sort of tipping point for me where I relax into the writing. Just think about where you are and what's the next little step you can take, not to achieve your lifelong goals, but to move you one step closer to something that feels successful, something that will give you a little moment of shine. And next week, I'm going to talk about more about this. I'm going to talk about what to do once you've taken that action to help really wire it into your brain. We're going to go through some exercises next week to talk about that. But for now, I want you to look at your writing life, look inside, figure out what you want. Do you just want to be writing? Then forget about Newbery prizes and Pulitzer prizes and publishing deals. You just want to be writing? Figure out how you can make that happen. What's the minimum thing that would make you feel triumphant, that would make you feel like, yes, you've taken a step towards doing it? If it's write a Twitter story, write a Twitter story. And that's what I'm actually going to give you this week as a writing prompt. I'm going to ask you to write a Twitter story, so 140 characters or 280 characters, depending on how old school you are. You can go either way. Write a tiny story. Now, you can't get much into a Twitter story, and I'm going to put some links in the show notes with some articles at Story a Day to show you how to do that. And the point of writing Twitter stories is that it gets you back into the habit. If you stepped away from writing for a while, or if you're in the middle of an epic fantasy novel, this will bring you back into the habit of crafting stories that go from beginning to end in a few words and entertain you and potentially entertain a reader. I would encourage you this week to write a Twitter story on more than one day. I don't know how many days that will be for you to make you feel successful. I would say more than one, potentially 7, more likely 5, because you could do that every weekday, or you could do 4 because you could do that every other day, or you could extend the week a bit and do 6 whatever you want to do, every other day, just on weekdays or on every other day. I find it easier to do every day for 5 days and then take 2 days off, because we've got that structure baked into us anyway, weekdays versus weekends, and we do need some time to rejuvenate and relax. But if you're just going to write something every day, make it tiny, make it every day for a limited amount of time, and then you bypass the whole question of whether you're going to write today, because you're going to write today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, 5 days in a row. And there's just no question. And your brain will start to anticipate that. It will start to look for stories. I mean, this is what I do in May and September. I tell you to write a story every day for the entire month. The things that I have learned from that are not that you have to write a story every day for a month, but when you are writing every day, your brain gets it. It starts to work for you. It starts to collaborate with you. And if it's something tiny like a Twitter story, the stakes are so low that you don't get stalled. So that's my prompt for you this week. Write a Twitter story every day. If you post it on Twitter, tag me at StoryAdayMay. If you post it on Facebook, you can find me there. There's a Story a Day page. I'm also Julie Duffy there. If you're on LinkedIn, I'm Julie Duffy. If you are on Instagram, I'm at StoryAdayMay. Tag me somewhere with the tiny stories that you write this week, and I'll come and read them. And then you've got accountability, you've got a goal, you've got that sense of success, of triumph, of having done something to take a tiny step every day towards the thing that makes you you. Next week, I will be talking about ways to make this kind of thing stick, even when you don't have a drill sergeant like me giving you ideas or giving you a challenge for the coming 5 days. Next week, we'll talk about a system you can use to help reinforce all these triumphs that you are building into your writing life. With that, I'm going to end it here. I hope that you'll write some stories this week. I hope that you will tag me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you hang out. And I would love to see what you're writing. I hope that you will feel successful. I hope you'll think about success and triumph in your writing life on a day-to-day practical level, and think about everything, every step you take towards furthering your writing as a triumph, because it is, and it's important. Keep writing, tag me, have a great writing week, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.